Welcome to the From Guilt to Good podcast, where we discuss all the things caregivers wish people would talk about, but don't, won't, or can't. Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I'm a lifelong caregiver for my mom and founder of The Self Caregiver, where I help caregivers feel good, not guilty. And in this week's episode of From Guilt to Good, we are chatting with Christina Honkonen. Did I say that right?
So close. So close. Close
Okay.
enough. It's Honkonen, but it's the same thing.
Great.
Right? And
right.
I inherited that name. So I have, I was taught when I got it, it's going to be a mess every time someone says it. So I'm used to it now.
Okay, well, good. So Christina Honkonen, all right, is a certified consulting hypnotist with the National Guild of Hypnotists and the Performance Mindset Expert. She's an expert in mindset training, sports hypnosis, stress reduction, and overcoming limiting beliefs to adopt new habits and perspective. I asked her to join us today because I reached out to her in the last months of my mom's life, hoping to find a way to ease my mom's anxiety. The work she did with my mother and in turn with me made a positive impact on both of us. Even if you've never considered hypnosis as a tool for your loved one or yourself, I invite you to listen to our conversation where we will both share about our experiences together. I'll talk about how I connected with Christina. We'll talk about her experience working with my mom and educate us on some of the ins and outs of hypnosis. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
It is an honor to have you here today. And like I mentioned in the intro, that crazy intro, oh my goodness, I'm leaving it just as is. I'm not chopping out any of it.
Yeah.
The reason I'm having you on here today, even though I have kind of made a shift in my recording episodes, just sharing caregiver stories, is you are part of my caregiver journey. And so I'm inviting you on, of course, as the expert that you are, but also because you came into my caregiving journey at a time where my mom and I were we had exhausted all of what you might call traditional options of pain management, anxiety relief, all of these things. And we were really willing to try anything, even things that we had not tried before. And hypnosis was one of those things. And so I found I think I had already started following you on Instagram and felt very comfortable with you because you have a way of sharing about hypnosis in like the opposite way that I grew up hearing about hypnosis, and probably most of the people listening to this podcast have. So just as a point of introduction for people who are unfamiliar with hypnosis and how you use it in your work, can you just give us a brief overview?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, thank you for saying that, because Instagram is a bizarre place and the social world is, and you're always trying, especially as a hypnotist, to bring and present hypnosis in a reputable way, because as you well know, it's not always been treated that way historically. And certainly cinema and Hollywood has not done us any service. So yes, today I am a hypnotist. I have a psychology degree, and then I actually went and worked in the corporate world for decades before I entered into this. And I found myself here. Most people, by the way, they come to hypnosis as a last resort, as you just described. That's very, very common. And for me, professionally speaking, that is also true. So I came to it when my son we were looking for ways to support him with attention, challenges, opportunities, and very traditional pediatrician at the time suggested we consider it, which was wild to me. I definitely skirt both, especially now, the holistic approach as well as very traditional care. So I had never considered it. My first thought and memory of hypnosis came out of my college experience, seeing a big stage performance, which is what comes to mind for most people. So I like to think, and I think it's true, that I came to it much like my clients come to me today. So I have a lot of empathy. I understand where they sit. My son likes to remind me that when our doctor suggested it, I said later to him, that is crazy. Fast forward, and I am a certified hypnotist with the National Guild of Hypnosis. I did this because I was shocked by the progress that my son made. So what we did was we used it to help him transition off medicine. I am not against medicine, so that's a different discussion for a different day. Right. But at the time, he was not responding well to that medicine. So we used it to transition off. Within the first week of him using it, his teacher was overwhelmed. She didn't know we were using hypnosis. It was one of those, wow, amazing. What is this, magic that hypnosis is? Because I saw firsthand the progress that someone could make. Now it's a journey, right? So that it doesn't end there. We can talk about that later. But it was enough to sort of wow me into attention. I start researching it, and I will tell you, to answer your question, what hypnosis is. And I say all that because it is a journey, it is an experience, and there's a big, bold, like broad conversation we need to have about what it is, right? But at the end of the day, it really is about leveraging our ability as humans to focus. And we do that by we do normally some sort of induction that's handled in different ways. Most hypnotists use a progressive relaxation process. We move someone from the beta brainwave state that you and I are in right now. We're very analytical. We're judging. We're deciding what comes in and what goes out. Okay. What stays out. What we do is we move the brain purposefully into a more relaxed state. It's the alpha theta brainwave state. We go into this state every time we get lost in a good book. If you forget where you're going, but you still magically get there, that's also called like road hypnosis. Your mind wanders while your body is responding to what it always has, in a way that it always has, okay, by instinct. So we use that in hypnosis. We move you purposefully into that place, that very relaxed state of mind. And then we layer in suggestion for what you're looking to achieve. Now that looks like different things for different people, and we can talk more about that, but that's essentially what it is in a nutshell. And I will tell you that I spent all of my certification. I've now today spent thousands of hours studying hypnosis. I'm certified twice. And I've spent, I will say, probably the first 300 hours convinced that what I just said wasn't true. That there is no way that that's all it could be, right? And it isn't. There's metaphor and there's language patterns, and then what you say matters. But I will say it is absolutely true that it is as simple as that. So I'll stop there for a second, because I like fought it for so long. And I think other people do too, like there must be more going on here, right? You must really you must have magic, especially when you see that big stage performance and good, very trained stage hypnotist do their work. You're like, no, he's just magic. Or these people, this is fake, right? Because you see people, I mean, in my situation, my experience, they were classmates.
Right.
20 years ago, classmates who were acting like monkeys and doing things like, he was able to trigger in that they would, and I could talk about how they do this, but it is the same concept that we're really using something that we all do every day. We also go into that alpha theta brainwave state as we fall asleep and then as we wake up. Okay. That's what it is in a nutshell.
Well, and thank you so much for doing that overview and walking through some of that, because I think, depending on, when you grew up, I know for myself, I grew up in the 80s, the movies and all the stuff. It was either this is fake or this is evil.
Yes.
And so learning about it in a fresh new way made it less scary for me to bring up to my mom one day when she was talking about, struggling with, she was in a lot of pain. She was uncomfortable. And then of course she had the anxiety of, not knowing what was next, which was very hard for her. And so I said to her, what do you think about this? And she was very open to it, which I was very glad. But one of the reasons I think she was open to it is what you described sounds very similar to guided meditation and visualization work that, of course, a lot of people do who study psychology, my mom got a master's in counseling back when she was working. And that was kind of some of the stuff that she did. I remember being a little girl and she was practicing her visualization, because she had to do it. So I felt like a lot of what you were talking about on your feed and on your website was, and I think we even kind of exchanged back and forth a little bit through the DMs. I was like, oh, well, this isn't, she's not going to make my mom cluck like a chicken, but she might be able to help my mom relax, or maybe even feel, at the very least, it'll be the way I thought about it was, at the very least, my mom will have someone to talk to, which was a gift for her because she was in her bedridden in a nursing home. And at the best, at the most, she could find some pain relief and anxiety relief. And so that is why we reached out to you. Now, my question, and I do want to talk a little bit about your experience working with my mom, but I want to ask you why you said yes to, hey, I know you don't normally work with hospice patients, but why, would you consider this? Why did you say yes to that?
So that's a great question. First of all, I do this work, and I think my practice is about split. So I'm doubly certified as a general hypnotist, but also, and to work with anyone who needs and asks for help and then wants that help and has an idea of what they want or are willing to explore it with me. Right. So first of all, I do think that as a hypnotist, you have somewhat of an obligation to step up and offer your services to support people. Much like a doctor would say, I have a role to play to offer what I've learned, right? I have a set of skills, and because of that, I'm obligated to share them. Now, that's not why I didn't say yes to your mom, because I feel obligated. But I give you a sense of like how I view what my skill set is and what we're taught as hypnotists. So I was actually trained by Ron Esslinger, who has passed away this past year in December. But he was an incredible hypnotist. He was in the Navy, and he was a nurse anesthetist who then transitioned over. Because of that, his specialty is in pain management. And so that's actually where even though I was trained with him over all different types of issues to cover different issues, pain was certainly a specialty of his. And then because of that, as his student, that was passed to me. And Ron is the foremost expert, probably, if not, in America, perhaps across the world, for pain as a specialty. So when we're certainly trained to work with people in hospice, but also for pain management. So both of those subspecialties are part of what I was trained in, and that's why. But I will tell you, the reason I said yes, beyond the fact that I do think that as a hypnotist, we owe it to the world to bring our services forward. There's not a lot of us out there, and people come to us as a last resort. So, hypnosis isn't going to hurt. If it doesn't get you where it needs to be, the wonderful thing is I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not going to open you up and make a mistake or give you the wrong pill. What we do is use your brain to help you find solutions. So there's really not a lot of risk. So there's lots of opportunity, big upside, very little to no risk. So the other side of this is I love working with people in pain who are looking for alternatives. And then certainly anyone who, is in your mother's situation where she's coming and saying, I really want this. I want help and I need support. There is no greater honor, especially in this field, in my opinion, than to walk alongside someone as they come to their end of life. So for me, I look at it as one of the best experiences I've ever had in this profession. And I'm immensely grateful. So, it's an honor.
I know we don't have to go into detail because that was a private session, but we had to get creative in setting this up because she's bedbound and wasn't really great at, she used to be the queen of her computer and phone. Like she would go to the hospital. We would take both of them all the time. She was always on her computer, but in the later months, it was getting difficult. So I had to come with my laptop. We had to set up the appointment. And then I kind of had to be in the room with her because while we wanted the hypnosis session to be relaxing, she was also very sleepy. And so it was always like is she going to be awake? Is she going to be able to do it kind of thing? And so we set up the Zoom call or whatever we were using. And then you and my mom had a conversation. And then you were able to, y'all just started talking, but she was very open to it, which I would imagine is very helpful in the sessions that you do.
Yes. No one would work with someone, no one ethically would work with somebody who does not want to do this, who is not asking for it. So there was a combination of she really had a lot of interests, as you shared, in moving forward with hypnosis, felt like it was something that could be helpful to her. So that paired with your interest, it was a good combination. So if someone came to me and said, I want you to work with, my parent or whomever, and they have no concept of hypnosis, they're not open to it. They're not, obviously ethically, I could not do that. So it would
Right.
have to be someone who, and I think it always helps when there's familiarity. We're not going to take someone at the end of life and also work and, try to insinuate or suggest that they need to become familiar with this really quickly, get on board, turn to hypnosis. If that's not something that's like naturally easy for them and something they really want, that just would never be something helpful, obviously. So it has to be, your mother was just in a really wonderful place with a history of knowledge, highly educated, knew what she wanted, and felt like this is something that could be helpful to her. So at that point, what a wonderful combination. It was just really well positioned for me to step in alongside her as a partner
Right.
during that time and with you.
Well, one of the things that I loved the most about your sessions with her, and this is kind of where I want to like, so I can let the people know like how you helped her.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have discussed it before, but one of the things that you pulled out of her was, and you saw it, and then I saw it during the session, and then I saw it again and again over the next several months of her life, was her pure joy at remembering the baseball.
Yes.
And my mom, if you're a new listener, my mom and dad married when they were quite young. My dad was a minor league baseball player, and they traveled around the country. Poor young kid, with a baby, and it was super fun. But even though their marriage didn't work out, that was until her last day, one of the best memories of her life was being in that space and being with him in that time. And even though she knew it was just that one time and that was happy and great, she loved remembering that. And then I think working with you helped her keep remembering that joy all the way till the end. For me, that was the greatest gift. Not that she had never, I mean, I knew that she loved being a baseball wife, but like to see the joy and how she could almost put herself there, not only happened during that session, but it happened again when my father came to visit her, and they spent some time talking about those days. And then it happened again just days before she died, where I was able to, my dad had taken a picture for her while he was visiting some of the old places and shared it with me so I could share it with her. And she was as if she was back there in that space, back there at that baseball field. And she even said, just, I could run right across the field and give him a hug. Can I do that? I mean, she was there.
Mm.
And for me, I feel like there was that time with you, and then you had made her something to listen to, that we struggled with the technology with her phone, but we did it a couple times. That was what we got out of it. And so, I wanted to share that with everybody who's listening, to share that again with you. And then also, because it was kind of a different circumstance for you, I would love if you wanted to share anything that you personally or professionally got from that experience that might have been new to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, it was an incredibly beautiful scenario. And she knew what she wanted. And, it grew me as a hypnotist, but also as a human being, just being able to join her at that time is, like I said before, it's a complete honor, but it's also so enriching for my life. When, as a hypnotist, our goal is always to enter into someone's world and help them bring out and realize and remember their abilities, their resources, what they're capable of. In your mom's situation, what we're also doing is pairing it with what she wants and what she wants to feel. So the goals don't change. It just gets really clear and concise for them because they're in a different place in their lives. So it's almost, in some ways, it's like the ultimate scenario to be in as a hypnotist, because there's not a more clear space that you're in than when you're right before death and you're in that scenario where you're looking for ways, how do you want to let go, what do you want to remember. So our goals there are really to come alongside them and find out what they need and what they want and listen. It's not unlike anyone else who plays a good solid role, that whether you're like an end of life doula or your child, or whomever you are, you're walking in and going, what do you need at this time to make this easy right? And for some, that's going to be, I need to offload. I need to remember. I need to turn memories that were difficult and reimagine them in a new way. Or I need to find comfort in memories that were beautiful and wonderful and poignant for me in my life. Everyone's going to go through a different scenario. Our goal is to go, let's focus when, of course, they come to us and tell us this first, like, I want to find a way to make my end of life better. And then the question is, how do we do that? But this is the thing. They know. They know.
Right.
Just like every client I work with, they know what they need. It's just sometimes we've lost our way and we need guidance. And so we use hypnosis to help kind of break down the barriers and find those solutions again. It's the same work. I would argue that, especially with, your mom or anyone at end of life, it's just a lot more clear. That comes to them, right? You're sort of forced to grapple with, how am I going to remember my life? Where am I going to go to find comfort? But yeah, I mean, what an incredible experience. I will say this too. It was just so beautiful to see your relationship with your mom. I mean, from the very beginning, that was so astounding to me, to see the bond that you had, the love that you had for her, the fact that you were willing to help her navigate through this, find resources, find solutions, even hire a hypnotist. Like, of course, it's a dream come true to go, of course I can be helpful to you. You've built this infrastructure that is, it's I don't even know, there's no words for that, right? It is beyond special and important. And it's what what makes meaning out of life is what you did for her,
Well,
And so just to step in and like,
thank you.
of course, you don't need to thank me. My goal is always, especially in a situation like that, is like, let's come in and give you what you need and want. So it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of hearing what she needs. And then it is, let's wrap those memories up and remember them, take time with them and appreciate them. Yeah.
So, yeah, I really do need to thank you for saying that, because I want, again, for people who have listened to my episodes, they know that my relationship with my mom was very close, but not always very good. And so we worked really hard. I wanted to make sure that when we got to this part of the journey, that we weren't both sick of each other. And that took a lot of work and hope and grace and therapy, but it means a lot to me that that work paid off and that other people saw it besides just me and my mom.
Yeah.
Although just me and my mom is all that mattered. But speaking of me and this experience with you, we did have an opportunity to work together, because I was struggling with knowing that I was at the end of the journey, but feeling like I didn't know how to navigate that road. And you worked with me to help me imagine the road, walking my mom home, as I had grown up thinking about it. Partially, my mom was a student of Joyce Rupp, who was a nun who wrote many books about prayer. And one of the books that she wrote in conjunction with another person was called May I Walk You Home. And it was for caregivers who were serving at the end of life for someone, typically a loved one. And so I'd always had that image in my head of walking her home. And I was just like, but I'm really tired. I'm ready to stop. I want to get off this road.
Yeah. Yes.
And you came along and kind of helped me figure out how I could both walk my mom home without feeling stuck on this road. And that was a very helpful metaphor and session for me as well. And so I wanted to, just as we kind of wrap up our time, to talk a little bit about, because like you mentioned, you're happy to work with a caregiver's loved one, or if someone's listening and they're feeling like they're on their own health journey and would like to have some help with pain management or something like that, you're willing to do that, but also that there has to be some with the person that you're working with, that this is, even if they're skeptical, they're willing to give it a shot. Like there's this understanding of like, yes, I'm willing to give this a try. And I know you're also willing to do some, like a consultation session just to give more information about what you do. But for someone who's a caregiver like me and who is struggling with some of that guilt, that overwhelm, and maybe they're in therapy, maybe they're not, maybe they've tried therapy and it wasn't working for them and they're looking for other ways. Maybe they've tried meditation and that wasn't quite right. What encouragement could you give a caregiver to maybe reach out to a hypnotist like yourself to give it a try?
Hypnosis always astounds me in the progress that we are able to make. So first of all, I would say, going back to what I mentioned before, you don't have really anything to lose. I mean, the stakes are low. It's another tool in the tool belt. But I do talk all the time, like, that age old like idea, if you ask a doctor for help, he's going to want to operate. If you ask a therapist for therapy, she's going to want a therapy. If you ask a hypnotist, we're going to want to hypnotize. So my answer is you don't know until you try it. But if it's something that's interesting to you and you are on this journey and you're like, I don't know where to turn next, I think it is a wonderful tool to have in your tool belt to reach out, especially if you're interested. What I find again and again, and I'll just use like smoking as an example, because most people are really familiar with smoking cessation and the role that hypnosis can play. When someone comes to me and they're not sure, right, if they want to stop, then that is normally an indicator that they're not ready. Now, if you're like, you're trying to navigate post-event trauma, then, I would pair that with a therapist and maybe a hypnotist and do that together. But really, at the end of the day, it's if you know what you want, then we can get really far, or we can use hypnosis to help you figure out what you want. What I find is that we just get so stuck in our head that negativity bias that we are all prone to is a problem. And when we're trying to reprogram, reimagine, find those resources, we have to try different ways of doing that normally, right? Something's not working. So hypnosis can sort of like kick you out of that in a way that I rarely see in other models, if that makes sense. So I always think, yes, like give it a shot, give it a try, find somebody that you feel is reputable, that would be a good fit for you. And see if it works. What we're essentially doing is speaking to the body more so than that cognitive beta brain that you and I are using right now. What we are trying to do is bypass that. You can do it through prayer. You can do it through meditation. Hypnosis has that added level of let's use language to help you get where you want to be. But at the end of the day, it is always centered around let's find those resources again that have always been in you, but they have somehow either, suppressed or we can't find them. And we need to think differently. And that's where hypnosis really helps shift us out of like feeling stuck and getting us to a next level to reimagine what we could do, how we could think about things differently.
Well, that's very helpful. And I love how you basically said that there's these other ways. And so of doing that, of getting out of that beta brain, because I think that, for me, I use all of the ways and some, and so I think, this is another tool for your toolbox is another great way to think of it. I have a lot of self-care tools in my toolbox. I don't use all of them every single day.
Yes. Right.
Right now I can't use, I can't use it right now because I have a shoulder injury, but it's still in my toolbox. I'm just going to use it later. But anyway, I love that, this is just another tool for your toolbox. You can try it. If it works, great. It may be something that you're like, I might use this later, or, I might share this with my loved one or something. But I really appreciate you coming on today, sharing a little bit, letting me tell a little bit of my mom's story and our story with it, but also helping others understand how hypnosis might be helpful for them. I'm very honored to have you on, and maybe we'll have you on again, but I'll be sure to add all of your info into the show notes. So if you're listening today and want to learn more about hypnosis in general or connect with Christina to learn more, you will find that in the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your mom with me. It was an honor.
And thank you for joining me today on the From Guilt to Good podcast. To access additional caregiver resources, support our show, and connect with us on social media, check out the show notes. We're changing the conversation around caregiving one episode at a time. And remember that you can be a good caregiver and still have a life outside of caring for your parents.